You're listening to the Faeries and Folklore podcast by Ronel. I'm dark fantasy author Ronel Janse van Vuuren. With nearly a decade of digging around in dusty folklore books, researching creatures of imagination that ignited my curiosity, I'm here to share the folklore in a nutshell and how I reimagined it for my writing in An Origin of the Fae. This is the Faeries and Folklore podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Ronel Janse van Vuuren. You can just call me Ronel. In today's episode, we're continuing our exploration of the Fae realm. This episode is brought to you by my book, Once, Tales, Myths and Legends of Faerie, available in ebook, paperback and audiobook. Go to ronelthemythmaker.com/my-books for more. We're continuing our exploration of the power players of Faerie. Today's Faerie, the Cailleach. Folklore in a nutshell by Ronel. I'm enchanted by the old lore of the world, especially the Celtic goddesses. The Cailleach is one of the most fascinating, powerful, and terrifying of the Celtic goddesses. It is said that she is ancient. According to legend, the Cailleach can transform herself from a terrifying hag in the winter half of the year and into a beautiful young maiden in the summer half. She is an elemental power of winter, the cold, the wind, and tempests. She comes into power as the days shorten and the sun courses low in the skies. She carries a wand of power with which she shapes the land and controls the weather. In some accounts, she is a withered hag with a vicious temper who walks around with a wand or staff, freezing the earth and keeping all vegetation from growing to the detriment of man and beast. Once spring comes, she goes into a terrible rage and flings a staff or wand beneath a hawthorn tree and disappears until the next winter. In other tales, she disappears to an island where it is always summer to drink from the well of youth on the last day of her reign as Queen of Winter. She returns to Scotland and falls into a magic sleep. Once she wakes up in bright sunshine, she is a beautiful young girl, but as the days go past, she grows older. By midsummer, she is a fully grown woman. By autumn, her brows are wrinkled and her beauty has faded. When winter returns, she is an old withered hag and reigns again as the fierce Queen Vera. The Cailleach is the one who decides who will live and who will perish in the storms of winter, and this is why she is also known as the Hag of Storms. In yet another tale, she is the personification of winter and has been demoted from goddess to fairy. She is known to be solitary and is described as an old woman wearing blue or black tattered clothes with a crow sitting on her shoulder. In this tale, she carries a holly staff that kills instantaneously with the merest touch, and she flies, dropping stones on people's heads. On May Eve, she'll throw a staff under a holly bush and shapeshift into a grey stone until the next winter, when she'll continue her task of blighting the earth and calling down snowstorms. In all tales, though, she's seen tending to the land, forcing all to take time to rest, and taking care of wild creatures as the storms rage. There's clearly an underlying theme of yearning for youth and beauty, yet only having power as an old crone, and freedom from societal restrictions at this advanced age. I think, though, we can all agree that she's super powerful and temperamental. And now for my interpretation of the Fae in An Origin of the Fae, Cailleach. aka Cailleach's Beer, aka Vera, Queen of Winter. Sacred tree, holly and gorsebush. Storm hags accompany her. All turn to stone, standing stones, from Beltane to Samhain. According to myth, turning to stone only happens when they do not fulfill their duty to the land, the dark court, and the Dark King. The Cailleach has a staff that freezes the earth with each tap. She is also guardian of the animals during winter. The Cailleach is aligned with the Unseelie, the Dark Court, since the Rift, for protection and power. Though the Storm Hags accompany her wherever she goes, it is more for their entertainment than her protection. She holds the power of winter. She can appear as an old woman, thus her name, or at any stage of life, whatever suits her purpose. She lives in Tir na Nog, a realm all of her own filled with snow, various fae that either come willingly to her realm, or accidentally, or by force, a castle that sometimes appears as a cottage, and various animals from the mortal realm that find their way to her for comfort and safety. She sends the cold from her realm to Faerie and the mortal realm as needed. As a little bonus, let's look at the translation of Bera, Cailleach's Queen of Winter, into Afrikaans. Bera, Cailleach's Koningin van Winter. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode of the Faeries and Folklore podcast, and that you've learned something new about Faerie. Remember that you can get a transcript of this episode in the description. If you're new to the podcast, why not go and grab your free copy of Unseen, the second book in the fairy tale series, on my website, ronelthemythmaker.com. Loads of folklore, magic, and danger await. Take care.